Buckeye Talk from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. The last question that we asked Ohio State offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson today after a long interview session with him, Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, was, and I asked it, a follow-up question. Why is Donovan Jackson playing left guard this spring? Why is Matt Jones playing right guard this spring? Kevin Wilson says, well, in the future, if we have to move Donovan Jackson out to left tackle, it makes more sense to have him on the left side. Stephen, what was your thought when you heard him say that?
I thought Bill Ennis, who was sitting right next to me, was going to cry, first and foremost. But, I mean, if he's your – obviously, we've had this conversation in the past of what does Ohio State's tackles look like going forward in a world where DeJuan Jones has gone after the season and Paris Johnson is like an Outland Trophy finalist and goes pro after this year, and maybe they're in panic mode. And you threw out the idea that maybe Donovan Jackson can move out there.
What'd you say to that at the time?
I didn't scoff at it like you were an idiot.
I think I scoffed.
There was some scoffing.
I just said that he's kind of short. He is. He's only like 6'5", but he's closer to 6'4" than he is to 6'5". But he does have the long arms and the length that makes up for it. So the name, first of all, the name Trent Williams has come up way too much with Ohio State over the last couple of weeks, whether it's with recruits or it's with the coaches. So we get it. Like Trent Williams is small, but he's a really good tackle. But everybody's not Trent Williams. But if you're telling me that a guy as talented and as athletic as Donovan Jackson might be your third best tackle, okay, I'll believe that. In an emergency pitch, you might want him to slide out there and you throw somebody else in at the interior spot because maybe you have more depth there. I'll understand that, but I just don't see it long term. But I understand in an emergency pitch, you throw him out, you just kick him outside real quick and you just maybe throw Josh Fryer in there at left guard for a spot.
Doug, is it a good thing that Ohio State is already looking at its roster and saying Donovan Jackson might be our starting left tackle next year? Or is it a signal that of just how wrong things have gone in their offensive line build, and it's potentially a detriment next year to be in that position?
Well, it already went wrong. So it's like, we're looking for solutions. We already have, we know the problem. They know the problem. So, like, I don't care who kicks out this year as a backup. This, to me, was an indication that Donovan Jackson can be the starting left tackle next year if Paris Johnson goes pro. He's listed at 6'4", 300. Paris Johnson is 6'6", 315. DeJuan Jones is 6'8", 360. 6'4", to your point, is a little short for a tackle. It's not impossible, but, I mean, Ohio State, they got some big dudes on this roster. Grant Touton's 6'6", Ben Crispin's 6'6", Josh Fryer's 6'6", Trey LaRoe's 6'7", George Fitzpatrick's 6'6", Zen Michalski's 6'7", right? I mean, like, that's more often the thing, and we just went through a season where they kind of had 4 tackles, and so 2 of them played guard. Now we're talking about a guy who probably is a better guard, maybe playing tackle. I will say this. When the Cleveland Browns got pinched last year, I think it was last year, a little bit, they bumped out Joel Bitonio, who's their all-pro left guard, and played him at left tackle for a couple games, and he's not a long wingspan, super tall guy. He was pretty good. There is a part of this of, like, if you're a good lineman, you can probably figure it out. But the thing to me, and why I sat up in my seat, was like, oh, they might have a tackle for 2023 if both the guys they have leave. Because at the moment, we don't know who either tackle would be for next year if DeJuan Jones and Paris Johnson aren't here. And the idea that, oh, this 5-star recruit who's going to start at guard this year could be the guy, I just thought he was too small. Mm-hmm. And so the opening, I'm ready to storm through the opening, because it's like, well, if he can do it for a little bit, he can probably do it for a lot, and you might have solved what looks like a glaring problem for next year.
And I think there's a whole thing we could go into probably about the difference between height and wingspan. And if you have the wingspan, then maybe the height isn't as crucial. So I think that's going to come into play. I think it's mostly, though, going to be about when you look at that arrangement, which guy do you trust the most to put out there? There was a lot of questions today to Kevin Wilson about the current tackles they have, Paris Johnson Jr. and DeJuan Jones, and like what are the steps they have to take this spring. And the thing he kept bringing up was winning those one-on-one battles against elite players. And when you look at Ohio State's potential offensive line for next year, which of those offensive linemen, take Luke Whippler out because he's a center, which of the remaining offensive linemen is best suited to win one-on-one battles against elite pass rushers? And it may be Donovan Jackson. We'll see what happens in the transfer portal. We'll see what happens development-wise. But it's a concept that has always made sense to me just because of the situation they have put themselves in recruiting-wise for next year. Get the text, 614-350-3315, and come listen to us talk about this and a whole lot of other things on the Buckeye Talk podcast.